Hey everyone, Mr. Pratt here. I wanted to make this video going over what we've been doing in math class the last few weeks. We've been working on adding and subtracting fractions, and it's very core in the fourth grade because we don't have to worry about adding and subtracting with unlike denominators yet. The basics are fairly straightforward. If we just look at a fraction like 2/8 add 3/8, we kind of want to think of that denominator as our unit of measure, like 2 inches plus 3 inches would be 5 inches. So we have that 2 inches plus 3 inches was 5 inches. 2/8 plus 3/8 would be 5/8. So when we're adding fractions, we add the numerator, but the denominator stays the same. The same would go with the very basics of subtraction. If I have 7/10 and I want to subtract 3/10, then it follows kind of the same general process. I do that 7 subtract 3 is 4. So I subtract the numerator and then the denominator remains the same. Unfortunately here in fourth grade, it doesn't quite stay that easy, even though it does stay with like denominators, except for between tenths and hundredths, which I'm not going to worry about here in this video. So if we, let's go here, we do eventually get to the point where we are adding mixed numbers. So let's say I have 3 1/4, and I'm going to add to that 2 2/4. Now, the first thing we've taught the kids to do is to stack those fractions, kind of like you would a normal multi-digit addition or subtraction number. So we have 3 1/4, and we're going to add to that 2 2/4. Now again, this stays fairly simple because I haven't yet moved into where I'm going to have to regroup. But I'm going to start with the fractions, and I'm going to add the 1/4 and the 2/4. Now again, we just add the numerator, we keep the denominator. So 1 add 2 is 3. And then the fourths remains the same. It does not change. And then we can go on to adding the whole numbers. 3 add 2 is 5. So 3 1/4 add 2 2/4 would be 5 3/4. The same again would go for subtracting mixed numbers without regrouping at least. Let's say we've got 5 3/5, and we want to subtract 1 1/5. So again, based on the nature of it for when we do have to regroup, we tell the kids that we always want these to be stacked. So we're going to have 5 3/5, and we're going to subtract 1 1/5. Again, we're going to subtract the numerators. 3 subtract 1 is 2. That denominator remains the same. So we've got 3/5 subtract 1/5 is 2/5. 5 subtract 1 is 4. So it's not until we get into having to regroup with either addition or subtraction that it gets a little bit stickier. So let's say I have 5 3/4, and I want to add to that 2 3/4. So again, we're going to start by stacking 5 3/4, add 2 3/4. So this is why we will always want to start with the fractions, because if the regrouping has to happen, it's easier if it can just happen all at once. So when we do 3 add 3, we get 6. And that denominator stays the same. Now you'll notice that that's what we used to call an improper fraction, fractional form of a mixed number, top-heavy fraction, whatever people want to call it. That is a fraction that is greater than 1 because the numerator is bigger than the denominator. So at this point in time, we want to regroup. I have too much here, so I'm going to pull a 1 out of that. Now, I can't just say subtract 1 because that doesn't quite work with what we're doing. Because we're fractions, we want to subtract 1, but in a fractional form. If my denominator is fourths, then I want to remove 4 fourths. That is a fraction that's equal to 1 because my numerator and denominator are the same. This goes back to our basics of subtraction. Subtract 4 is 2, and then my denominator stays the same. So now in my answer, rather than 6 fourths, I have 2 fourths. And this 1 here that I pulled out gets regrouped on top of the whole numbers. So I can do 1 add 5 is 6, 6 add 2 is 8, and I don't want to write it there. I want to write it down here by the 2 fourths. So 5 and 3 fourths add 2 and 3 fourths is 8 and 2 fourths. So let's just take a look at one more of those, because this is really where it starts getting complicated at the 4th grade level, at least, with adding and subtracting of mixed numbers, this regrouping. So let's just do another one. Let's say 6 and 7 tenths. And we're going to add to that 3 and 5 tenths. So we'll look at this just one more time. Again, we start with the fractions. 7 add 5 is 12. The denominator remains the same. We add the numerator, we keep the denominator. Now, because my 12 is greater than 10, that tells me this is a fraction greater than 1. So I'm going to subtract 1 from that. But I'm not going to subtract it as 1. I'm going to subtract it as a fractional form of 1 with that 10 denominator. So 10 tenths. 12 subtract 10 is 2. My denominator stays the same. So I'm going to bring that 2 tenths down here for my answer. We've got 2 tenths. And then this 1 that I pulled out here, that 10 tenths, gets regrouped to the whole numbers. So I bring that 1 up top over there. 1 add 6 is 7. 7 add 3 is 10. So my answer is 10 and 2 tenths. Now, we could get into simplifying that to 10 and 1/5, but I'm not worrying so much about that. Right now, we're just looking at getting the basics of this adding and subtracting with regrouping down. So again, we add the fractions. Because this is a fraction that is greater than 1, we want to pull that 1 out of it, which left us 2 tenths, and then I added my whole numbers, which gave me 10 and 2 tenths. Now, if you go back to the subtraction, remember we set it up the exact same way. Now, I just brought you back to the problem we did that had no regrouping, but I stacked it, I subtract the fractions, I subtract the whole numbers. Subtracting fractions with regrouping again is where it gets stickier. So let's say I have 5 and 1/4, and I want to subtract from that 2 and 3/4. So one of the major things that kids try to do, which we can't do, is they find the difference between 1 and 3 is 2. Now that would happen to work for this one, but it's not always going to work. But that 1, we can't really do 1 subtract 3. I mean, I tell them, if I've got 1 finger, can I put down 3 fingers? And the answer is no, so we have to regroup. Now, our regrouping looks very similar to if this was just a whole number. I'm going to go next door, and I'm going to borrow 1, or regroup 1. So now that's 4, and I'm going to bring that 1 over to here. But I don't want to bring it over as 1. Just like addition, I want to bring it over as 1 in a fraction form with whatever my denominator is. In this case, my denominator was 4. So I'm going to regroup that 1 as 4/4, and that then equals 5/4. Now I can do the 5/4 subtract 3/4 because I can do 5 take away 3. If I've got 5 fingers and I put down 1, 2, 3 of them, I have 2 fingers left. So I can subtract 2/4. I can't subtract the 5/4 and 3/4 to get that 2/4. Now I can subtract my whole numbers because I regrouped the 1. I have 4, take away 2 is 2 and 2/4. Now, like I said, this one happens to work where the difference between 1 and 3 is 2, but that becomes problematic if you're not that lucky. Let's say I've got 6 and 3/10, and I want to subtract, we'll say 3 and 9/10. Now, just to show you what I'm talking about, if I were to think about the difference between 3 and 9, it's 6. Now, if we're going to do this the way that I've shown, again, if I put up 3 fingers, I can't put down 9 fingers because I only have 3, which is why we have to do that regrouping. We want to move one of these wholes, so that becomes a 5, into my fraction with that denominator of tenths. So I'm going to regroup that 1 into 10 tenths. Now, if I add those together, I end up with 13 tenths. Now, if I were to do 13, take away the 9, 13 take away 9 is 4. And then my denominator, again, always stays the same. So 13 tenths subtract 9 tenths is 4 tenths. So now you see, the difference between 3 and 9 was 6, but that doesn't work because when I actually regroup and do it correctly, I end up with 4 tenths. Now I can do the 5 take away 3 is 2 and 4 tenths. Let's just look at one more of these. I'll do it a little bit more smoothly as we go through it without the extra little like comparing. Let's just say we've got 8 and we'll do 1/5 subtract 2 and 3/5. So again, if I've got one finger up, I can't put down 3 fingers. So I cannot do 1 take away 3 in this instance. So we've got to regroup. We're going to come over to this whole number and we're going to make that 7. And we're going to regroup that 1 as a fraction with a denominator of 5. So I'm going to bring that 1 over as 5/5. Now if I add those together, I end up with 6/5. Now I can do 6 take away 3. Now that I've regrouped, 6 take away 3 is 3. My denominator remains the same. Then I can do the 7 take away 2 is 5. So this is about as difficult as it gets at the 4th grade level. We do have to worry about that regrouping for both adding and subtracting. Now, there are other ways we can do this, but this is the way that I've taught in class. If you know any of those other ways and you want to see if it works for your child, I'm all right with that. But this is what I've shown, this is what they know, and this is what they should be comfortable with and what I would prefer them to be comfortable with. So if you have any questions as you're reviewing this with your student, or student, if you have any questions as you're reviewing this, you guys can feel free to reach out to me, talk to me here at the school or whatever. But this is adding and subtracting fractions with regrouping. Thanks.